My name is Emily Harper. I'm 34. Last Thursday, at 2:47 p.m., I was standing in the parking lot of Blue Horizon, my father's beach house, my beach house, watching a locksmith change every single lock while my stepmother Victoria stood on the veranda with her arms crossed, telling him I was a squatter who'd been trespassing for months. "She has no legal right to this property," Victoria said, her voice carrying across the bluff wind. The locksmith looked uncomfortable, his drill hovering over the brass deadbolt. "The house belongs to the Langford Harper Family Trust. I have the paperwork right here." I stood there holding my keys, the keys my father had pressed into my hand when I was 16, the keys I'd used every summer for 18 years. My hands were shaking so badly the metal jangled. "Victoria, Dad left me this house in his will," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "You know that." "Your father," she said, and the way she emphasized your made my stomach drop, "made many promises he couldn't keep. The reality is that Blue Horizon was marital property. Jonathan and I purchased this home together in 2019. I have the deed. You have sentiment." Sophia appeared in the doorway behind her mother, sipping an iced coffee. My half-sister. She was 28, 6 years younger than me, and she'd perfected the art of looking concerned while doing absolutely nothing. Maybe you should just let Mom handle this," she said. "You're clearly overwhelmed. Dad's death has been hard on all of us." The locksmith finished the first lock. The sound of the old cylinder hitting his toolbox felt like a door slamming in my face. "I have the original will," I said. "Dad's attorney has it, Michael Reynolds. You can call him right now." Victoria smiled. It was the smile she used at charity events, the one that made donors write checks. "Michael Reynolds retired 8 months ago, Emily, and even if he hadn't, a will doesn't override a trust document. Surely someone with your education understands that." Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and what time is it there. The locksmith installed the new deadbolt. Victoria handed him a check. I watched him drive away, and then I walked down the 63 wooden steps to the beach, where my father and I used to collect sea glass every August morning at 6 a.m. Back when I still believed that if you were good and worked hard and did everything right, the people who were supposed to love you would. Let me take you back 11 years to the first time my father showed me the restoration drawings for the Nantucket Beacon. I was 23, fresh out of grad school with a landscape architecture degree and absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with it. We were sitting in his study at Blue Horizon, and he spread the plans across his mahogany desk. "Look at this, little architect," he said. That was his nickname for me ever since I was 8, and built a model lighthouse out of driftwood. "The beacon's been rotting for 60 years. Nobody knows how to restore coastal structures anymore, but you could learn. You could be the person who brings these places back." The plans smelled like salt and old paper. Dad traced the foundation details with his finger. "Historic restoration isn't just about buildings, Em. It's about preserving the things that anchor a community. This house." He tapped the window, gesturing toward the Atlantic. "The beacon. They're not just property. They're promises we make to the people who come after us." I remember asking him why he cared so much about old buildings when he spent his days writing wills and trust documents. "Because," he said, pouring us both coffee from the French press he only used when we were alone, "the law is about protecting what matters. Whether it's a lighthouse or a legacy, my job is to make sure the right people inherit what they're supposed to inherit." He handed me a cup. The coffee was too strong, the way I liked it. "Someday, little architect, all of this will be yours. Not because you're my daughter, because you're the only person who understands what it means." I believed him. I had no reason not to. 6 months after that conversation, my father married Victoria Langford at a private ceremony in Boston. I was in Portugal doing a fellowship in historic masonry restoration. I got the news via text message from Sophia. Mom and Jonathan tied the knot. Family dinner Sunday? I came home to find Victoria already redecorating. The French press was gone. The mahogany desk had been replaced with a glass one. My childhood bedroom was now a yoga studio. Your father and I thought it was time to refresh the space, Victoria said when I asked about my things. You're 34, Emily. Surely you don't need your high school yearbooks. But the first real betrayal came 14 months ago, 2 weeks after my father died. I was sitting in the living room at Blue Horizon, our living room, the one with the stone fireplace Dad and I had remortared together, when Victoria walked in with a manila folder. We need to discuss the house, she said. I remember the exact way she was dressed: cream linen pants, a navy cashmere sweater, pearl earrings. She looked like she was heading to a board meeting. I was wearing paint-stained jeans because I'd just finished touching up the window trim. What about it? I asked. It needs to be transferred into the family trust. She sat down across from me, crossing her legs. For tax purposes, the estate attorney recommended it. Something in my chest went tight. Dad left the house to me. It's in his will. Emily. Victoria's voice got softer, which somehow made it worse. Your father had a lot of ideas about what would happen after he died. But the reality is more complicated. Blue Horizon has significant tax implications. If we don't act quickly, you could lose it entirely. I'm not signing anything, I said. She slid a document across the coffee table. This is a quit-claim deed. Completely standard. It just moves the property into the trust so it's protected. You'll still have full access, of course. This is your home as much as it is mine. I didn't touch the paper. If it's my home, why do I need to sign it over? Victoria's expression changed. Not dramatically, just a slight tightening around her eyes. Because, Emily, your father left debts. Significant debts. The estate is complicated. If we don't consolidate assets, creditors could force a sale. Is that what you want? I looked down at the document. My name was already typed in the designated line. All I had to do was sign. I need to talk to Michael Reynolds, I said. Michael's retired. He moved to Florida 3 months ago. Victoria stood up, smoothing her pants. I'm trying to help you, Emily, but I can't force you to accept help. Just know that if this house goes into foreclosure because you were too stubborn to listen, that's on you. She left the folder on the table and walked out. I called Michael Reynolds' old office number that night, disconnected. I searched for him online. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. 2 days later, I got a call from an attorney named Richard Pemberton. He introduced himself as Victoria's lawyer. Ms. Harper, I understand you have concerns about the quitclaim deed, he said. His voice was smooth, practiced. I want to assure you that this is a routine matter. Your stepmother is simply trying to protect your father's legacy. My father left me the house, I said, in his will. Wills are complicated documents, Pemberton said, and they don't always reflect the full legal picture. Blue Horizon was purchased during your father's marriage to Victoria. That makes it marital property under Massachusetts law. They were only married for 3 years. Long enough to establish joint ownership. He paused. Ms. Harper, I'm going to be direct with you. If you contest this, you'll spend tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees only to lose. Victoria is prepared to be generous. She's offering you continued access to the property. Most people in her position wouldn't be so accommodating. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone twice trying to set it down. The rumors started 3 weeks later. I first heard about them from Catherine Mills, a woman I'd worked with on the Nantucket Beacon restoration. We were having coffee at the Nantucket Bake Shop when she leaned across the table with that expression people get when they're about to tell you something terrible while pretending they're doing you a favor. Emily, I heard something concerning, Catherine said, about the Jonathan Harper Coastal Preservation Fund. My father's charity. The one he'd spent 10 years building, the one that funded restoration projects across New England. What about it? I asked. Catherine's face went pink. Victoria mentioned at the garden club meeting that there were discrepancies in the books during the years you were helping manage the fund. The coffee in my mouth suddenly tasted like rust. What? She said some donation records didn't match up. That money had been moved around without proper authorization. Catherine touched my hand. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, but people are talking. I pulled up the fund's records that night. I'd served as the volunteer treasurer for 6 years, tracking every dollar, every donation, every grant. Everything was documented. Everything was correct. Except now, when I logged into the fund's bank account, my access was denied. I called Victoria. She didn't answer. I called Sophia. She texted back, "Mom says you need to stop harassing her." The next morning, I drove to the fund's office, a small space above a bakery on Federal Street. The door was locked. A note taped to the window said, "Temporarily closed for internal audit." I stood there for 10 minutes in the February cold, my breath making clouds in the 19-degree air, watching tourists walk past with their shopping bags and lattes. And I realized, Victoria wasn't trying to take the house. She'd already taken everything else. The house was just the last piece. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Ms. Harper?" A man's voice. "This is Detective Paul Morrison with the Nantucket Police. I need to ask you some questions about the Jonathan Harper Coastal Preservation Fund." That's when I knew. Victoria hadn't just locked me out of the house. She'd framed me for fraud. The meeting with Detective Morrison lasted 2 hours. We sat in a conference room at the police station while he showed me bank statements, transaction records, invoices for consulting services I'd never approved. "These payments," he said, tapping a spreadsheet, "to Langford Events LLC, 17 transactions over 28 months, total disbursement of $340,000. Your signature is on the authorization forms." I looked at the signatures. They looked like mine, but I'd never seen these forms before in my life. "I didn't sign these," I said. Morrison nodded slowly. He was in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. "Ms. Harper, I'm going to be honest with you. This looks very bad. These are serious allegations. Embezzlement from a charitable fund. If charged, you're looking at 5 to 10 years. "I didn't do this," I said again. My voice sounded far away. "Check my records. I have every transaction documented. Every meeting. Every decision." "We will," he said. "But I need to ask, do you have an alibi for the dates these authorizations were signed?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my calendar, March 15th, 2023, May 22nd, 2023, August 8th, 2023. Every date he listed, I'd been somewhere else, working on restoration sites, teaching workshops. On 3 of the dates, I'd been in Europe for conferences. "I can prove I wasn't even in Massachusetts," I said. Morrison wrote something down. "That would be helpful. But Ms. Harper, I have to tell you, the evidence we have is substantial. Wire transfers, authorized signatures, corporate documents. Someone set up Langford Events LLC specifically to receive these funds. The sole member is listed as Sophia Harper." My half-sister's name hit like ice water. "Get a lawyer," Morrison said, standing up. "A good one." I left the police station and sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I couldn't drive, couldn't think, couldn't breathe properly. My phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. "I'm told you spoke with the police. This is exactly the kind of drama your father tried to shield you from. Let me know when you're ready to discuss things rationally." I deleted the message. Then I drove to the one place I could still think clearly, the Nantucket Beacon. The lighthouse restoration I'd spent 3 years completing, my greatest professional achievement. The site was empty. The scaffolding had been removed 2 months ago. The beacon stood white and clean against the February sky, exactly as it had in 1847 when it was first built. I delivered the final restoration drawings 2 days ahead of schedule. I had the letter from Robert Whitaker, the Preservation Council director, thanking me for my extraordinary dedication and precision. I sat on the rocks below the lighthouse and tried to think. Victoria had done this carefully. She'd created a paper trail. She'd used Sophia's name to establish the shell company. She'd forged my signatures well enough to fool a detective. And she'd done it all while my father was dying, while I was spending every free moment at his bedside. My phone rang again. This time I recognized the number, the Nantucket Preservation Council. "Emily, it's Robert Whitaker," he said. His voice was strained. "I need to inform you that we're temporarily suspending your advisory role pending the outcome of the investigation into the fund. I'm sorry, this is just protocol." "Robert, I didn't." "I know," he said quickly. "I know you didn't. But the board is concerned about appearances. Just lay low for a while. Let this blow over." He hung up before I could respond. I lost 3 contracts that week. Projects I'd been negotiating for months. All of them pulled out with the same explanation. "We're going in a different direction." My bank account had $4,327 in it. My rent was $2,100. I had a car payment of $380 and a student loan payment of $540 due in 9 days. I applied for every job I could find: museum docent, gallery assistant, junior architect positions I was overqualified for. Nobody called back. The fraud allegations had spread through the historic preservation community like oil on water. Finally, I got a response from a landscape design company in Hyannis. They needed someone for basic residential work: lawn installations, garden design, mulch deliveries. It paid $18 an hour. I'd been making $75,000 a year doing restoration work. "You're hired," the owner said when I showed up for the interview. His name was Frank Bellamy, and he had dirt under his fingernails and kind eyes. "But I have to ask, are you going to quit the second something better comes along?" "No," I said. "I need this job." "Good," Frank said. "Because I need someone who shows up on time and knows the difference between boxwood and privet. Start Monday." I spent the next 3 months installing irrigation systems and pruning hydrangeas and trying not to think about the fact that I had a master's degree in historic restoration architecture and I was currently digging post holes for a deer fence in Osterville. Victoria called me once during that time. It was a Saturday morning. I was on my knees, planting hostas in the shade garden of a woman who kept calling them hosta plants. "Emily, I think we should talk," Victoria said when I answered. Her voice was soft, reasonable. "This has gone on long enough. I miss having you in our family." "Your family," I said. "Not mine." "Don't be dramatic. Look, I'm willing to drop the fund investigation if you sign the quitclaim deed. It's that simple. You sign, I make this go away, and we can all move forward." I looked down at my hands. They were covered in dirt. My nails were broken. I was 34 years old, and I'd spent the last 3 months doing work I could have done at 16. "No," I said. "Emily, no," I said again. And I hung up. That's when Victoria appeared at my work site. It was a Tuesday morning in late May. I was installing a stone border for a rose garden at a property on Scudder Lane. The client was inside making tea. Frank was measuring for a privacy fence near the driveway. Victoria pulled up in her white Mercedes. She got out wearing sunglasses and a silk scarf and walked right across the fresh mulch I'd just spread. "Emily, I need to speak with you," she said. I kept working. "I'm on the clock, Victoria." "This won't take long." She lowered her sunglasses. "I've been more than patient with you. But my patience has limits. You need to understand something. I will not let you destroy what your father and I built together." Frank walked over. "Ma'am, this is a private property. If you're not the homeowner, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Victoria ignored him. "The quitclaim deed, Emily. Sign it by Friday or I'm filing a formal complaint with the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. Charity fraud is a federal crime." "I didn't steal anything," I said. I stood up. wiping my hands on my jeans. And you know it. What I know, Victoria said, her voice rising, is that you've been jealous of Sophia and me since the day your father married me. You couldn't stand that he'd finally found happiness. You couldn't stand that he had a real family. The client came out onto her porch holding a tray with teacups. She froze when she saw Victoria. You know what your problem is? Victoria continued. Her face was flushed now. You think because you shared some precious memories with Jonathan, you deserve everything. You think restoration drawings and summer mornings make you special. But the truth is, Emily, you're just a daughter who couldn't accept that her father moved on. Frank stepped between us. Ma'am, you need to leave. Now. Victoria pulled her sunglasses back down. Think about what I said, Emily. You have until Friday. She got in her Mercedes and drove away, leaving tire tracks through the rose bed I'd spent 2 hours preparing. The client came down from the porch. I'm so sorry, I said immediately. That won't affect the work. I'll fix the tire tracks. Don't worry about the tracks, dear, she said softly. She was in her 70s with white hair and intelligent eyes. That woman is your stepmother? Yes. She seems deeply unhappy, the client said. The kind of unhappy that makes people cruel. She handed me a cup of tea. My late husband used to say, never trust someone who yells at you in front of witnesses. It means they've already decided you have no power. I drank the tea. It was too hot, but I didn't care. Something had shifted inside me. Not anger, something colder. Something that felt like the moment right before you stop trying to save a relationship and start trying to save yourself. That night, I went back to Blue Horizon. Not inside. I couldn't go inside anymore. But I sat on the beach and I thought about my father. About the way he used to test the mortar on the fireplace every fall, pressing his thumb against the joints to make sure they'd hold through winter. About the way he filed every document in perfect alphabetical order. About the way he used to say, the law is about protecting what matters. My father was an estate attorney. He'd spent 40 years protecting other people's legacies. He would have protected mine. I pulled out my phone and searched for Michael Reynolds one more time. This time I added estate attorney Florida retirement to the search. And I found him. A small notice in the Naples Daily News from 6 months ago. Michael Reynolds, formerly of Boston, joined the board of directors for the Naples Coastal Conservation Trust. I called the trust the next morning. The receptionist put me through immediately. Emily Harper, Michael Reynolds said when he answered. His voice was exactly as I remembered, warm, precise, professional. I wondered when I'd hear from you. You wondered? Your father asked me to wait, Michael said. He said Victoria would move fast after he died. He said she'd try to take everything. He said you'd call me when you were ready. My throat went tight. What do you mean he asked you to wait? Can you come to Naples? Michael asked. I think we should have this conversation in person. I flew to Florida 3 days later. Used the last of my savings for the plane ticket. Michael Reynolds's office was in a converted Victorian house 2 blocks from the beach. He met me at the door. You look like him, he said, shaking my hand. Your father. Same expression when you're thinking. We sat in his office. He poured coffee from a French press, the same one, I realized, that used to be in my father's study. He wanted you to have this, Michael said, handing me the press. After Victoria got rid of it, he rescued it from the donation pile and asked me to keep it safe. I set the press down carefully on the desk between us. My hands were shaking. Your father came to see me 8 months before he died, Michael said. He knew he was sick. He knew he didn't have long. And he knew exactly what Victoria would do the moment he was gone. He pulled a file from his desk drawer. It was thick, organized with colored tabs. Jonathan spent 2 years preparing for this, Michael said. He documented everything. He recorded conversations. He hired a forensic accountant to monitor the fund transactions. He even had a handwriting expert analyze Victoria's signature patterns. Michael opened the file. He knew she'd forge your name. He knew she'd create a shell company. He knew she'd try to claim Blue Horizon as marital property. Why didn't he stop her, I asked, while he was alive? Because he needed her to act first, Michael said. If he'd accused her before she'd done anything, she could have claimed he was paranoid, cruel, that he was turning against her in his final days. She would have contested the will on grounds of undue influence or diminished capacity. He slid a document across the desk. This is the original deed to Blue Horizon. Your father purchased the property in 2003, 11 years before he married Victoria. It was never marital property. He transferred it into an irrevocable trust in your name in 2018. Victoria has no legal claim. I stared at the document. My name was on every line. Emily Harper, sole beneficiary. But the quitclaim deed, I said. The lawyer. Victoria's attorney said. Victoria's attorney lied, Michael said bluntly. Or he never checked the actual title history. Either way, any quitclaim deed you signed would be void. You can't sign away property you already own free and clear. He pulled out another document. Bank statements, highlighted in yellow. The Langford Events LLC was created by Sophia Harper in October 2022, Michael said. But every single transaction was authorized by Victoria Langford Harper using forged electronic signatures. Your father had IT specialists monitoring the fund's systems. They logged every login, every authorization, every wire transfer. Victoria didn't know the system was tracking her. I read through the statements. 17 transactions, $340,000. Every single one traceable back to Victoria's IP address, her computer, her timestamps. She framed her own daughter, I said quietly. She framed you both, Michael corrected. Sophia has no idea the LLC exists. Victoria used her daughter's identity to create a corporate shield. If the fraud was discovered, Sophia would take the fall. He handed me one more document. A letter. The paper was cream-colored, expensive. My father's handwriting. He asked me to give this to you when the time was right, Michael said. I think that time is now. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unfold it. Dear little architect, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and Victoria has already done what I knew she would do. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this while I was alive. I tried talking to her. I tried reasoning, but Victoria doesn't hear reason. She only hears documents. Do you remember the summer you were 16? We were remortaring the fireplace at Blue Horizon, and you asked me why I cared so much about a house. I told you, some things are worth protecting, even if it costs everything. I meant it. The original trust documents are with Michael Reynolds. His office is at 847 3rd Avenue South, Naples, Florida, 34102. The copies I've left with him are complete, everything you need to prove that Blue Horizon belongs to you, that the fund fraud was Victoria's scheme, that Sophia was framed. Inside this envelope you'll also find the original irrevocable trust deed, recorded 2018, complete forensic audit of all fund transactions, 2022 to 2024, digital evidence logs showing Victoria's IP addresses and login timestamps, witness statements from my accountant and attorney documenting Victoria's attempts to access protected documents, documentation of the Article 14.3 forfeiture clause in my will. Don't show these to anyone until the right moment. Not your friends, not well-meaning relatives, not even the police. Wait until Victoria is confident. Wait until she's surrounded by witnesses. Wait until she's so certain of her victory that she stops being careful. Michael will know what to do. Trust him the way I trusted him. You are not a disappointment. You are not ungrateful. You are not the villain in Victoria's story. You are the architect who preserves what others would let crumble. Always, Dad. P.S. Article 14.3 of my will states that if Victoria contests the distribution or attempts to claim property designated for you, she forfeits all inheritance rights immediately. She doesn't know this clause exists. Her attorney never bothered to read past page 4. I read it 3 times. Then I set it down on Michael's desk and cried for the first time since my father died. Michael handed me a tissue box and waited. What's the Article 14.3 forfeiture clause? I finally asked. Your father's insurance policy, Michael said. Most wills don't include forfeiture provisions, but your father added one specifically to protect you. It states that if Victoria contests any part of the will or makes any claim to property specifically designated for you or interferes with your inheritance rights in any way, she loses everything. The house she actually does have a claim to, the Boston condo they purchased together, the joint bank accounts, the retirement investments, all of it reverts to you. She doesn't know? She never read the full will, Michael said. She hired an attorney who skimmed it, told her what she wanted to hear, and filed a challenge based on incomplete information. The moment she filed that challenge, she triggered the forfeiture clause. She lost her entire inheritance trying to steal yours. I looked at the documents spread across Michael's desk. 2 years of careful preparation. My father had known. He'd known exactly what Victoria would do, and he'd built a legal wall around me so high and so strong that she'd never see it coming. "What do I do now?" I asked. Michael smiled. "We wait for the perfect moment, and then we let Victoria destroy herself." That moment came 6 weeks later, the annual benefit gala for the Jonathan Harper Coastal Preservation Fund. The White Elephant Hotel in Nantucket. 85 guests, cocktails on the veranda, dinner and program in the ballroom. Victoria had organized the entire event. She'd sent the invitations on heavy cardstock. She'd hired a photographer. She'd arranged for the Nantucket Chronicle to cover it. This was her victory lap. I received my invitation in the mail with a handwritten note. "Emily, I hope you'll attend. Despite everything, you're still family. V." I called Michael. "Is this it?" "This is it," he said. "She's going to use the gala to announce the family's decision to transfer Blue Horizon into the trust. She'll make it public so you can't contest it without looking vindictive. She'll frame it as honoring your father's memory." What should I do? "Attend the gala," Michael said. "Dress well. Be gracious. When she makes her announcement, ask to say a few words. Then hand her the envelope." "What envelope?" "The one I'm sending you," Michael said. "Overnight delivery. Don't open it until you're standing on that stage." The envelope arrived 2 days before the gala. It was thick, legal-sized, sealed with red wax. My father's initials pressed into the seal. I held it for a long time before putting it in my purse. The White Elephant Hotel ballroom was decorated in ivory and gold. Round tables with linen tablecloths. Arrangements of white hydrangeas and beach grass in driftwood vases. The windows overlooked Nantucket Harbor at sunset. Victoria wore a black gown and diamond earrings. Sophia stood beside her in navy silk. They looked like a magazine spread. Elegant, united, untouchable. I wore a simple gray dress and my grandmother's pearl necklace. I arrived alone. Robert Whitaker from the Preservation Council saw me first. He looked uncomfortable. "Emily, I didn't know you were coming." "Victoria invited me," I said. "Right, of course." He glanced toward the bar where Victoria was holding court with board members. "Listen, about your advisory position. Once this investigation clears up—" "It's fine, Robert," I said. "Really." I got a glass of water and found a seat at a table near the back. I recognized most of the guests: Preservation Society members, local architects, donors who'd supported my father's work for decades. Catherine Mills was there, the one who'd first told me about the rumors. She waved, then quickly looked away. The cocktail hour lasted forever. I made small talk with the other people at my table: a retired teacher, a gallery owner, a couple who owned a bed and breakfast on Center Street. Nobody mentioned the fraud investigation. Nobody mentioned Blue Horizon. It was like I was a ghost haunting my own father's memorial event. Dinner was striped bass with lemon butter. I pushed it around my plate. Finally, Victoria stood up. The room quieted. The photographer positioned himself near the stage. "Good evening, everyone," Victoria said. Her voice carried perfectly, practiced and warm. "Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate the Jonathan Harper Coastal Preservation Fund and the incredible work we continue in my late husband's name." She paused for applause. Everyone clapped. Jonathan's dream was always that our coastal heritage would be preserved for future generations. He believed that places like Blue Horizon, our family's home on the bluff, weren't just property. They were promises, commitments to the community. My hands were clenched in my lap. The envelope in my purse felt like it weighed 10 pounds. Tonight, Victoria continued, I'm proud to announce that our family, united in honoring Jonathan's vision, has decided to transfer Blue Horizon into the Langford Harper Family Trust. This ensures the property will be protected, preserved, and eventually opened as a public heritage site where school groups and preservation students can learn about coastal architecture. More applause. People were smiling. This was exactly what they wanted to hear. Historic preservation, public access, a generous widow honoring her husband's legacy. Sophia stood up and joined her mother on stage. They held hands. The photographer's flash went off 3 times. My daughter Sophia and I have worked tirelessly over these past months to organize this transition, Victoria said. And while it hasn't been easy, family matters rarely are, I believe this is what Jonathan would have wanted. His daughter Emily joins us tonight. She gestured toward me. Emily, would you like to say a few words? 85 people turned to look at me. I stood up. My legs felt strange. I walked to the stage. Victoria stepped aside, smiling her charity event smile. I pulled the envelope from my purse. Thank you, Victoria, I said into the microphone. My voice didn't shake. I would like to say a few words. I broke the red wax seal. Inside was a smaller sealed envelope addressed to Victoria Langford Harper, and beneath it, a 47-page forensic audit report bound with a blue cover. My father was an estate attorney for 40 years, I said. He taught me that the law is about protecting what matters. He also taught me that the truth doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be documented. I handed Victoria the smaller envelope. This is for you. She opened it. I watched her face change. The smile disappeared first. Then the color drained from her cheeks. Her hands started to shake. Inside the envelope were 3 things: the keys to Blue Horizon, the original irrevocable trust deed showing my sole ownership, and a single sentence in my father's handwriting. Article 14.3. Forfeiture clause activated upon contest. See attached legal notification. Blue Horizon was never marital property, I said, still speaking into the microphone. My voice was steady, calm. My father purchased it in 2003. He transferred it into an irrevocable trust in my name in 2018. Victoria knew this. Her attorney knew this. They attempted to defraud me using a shell company called Langford Events LLC to embezzle $340,000 from this very fund. The room had gone completely silent. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. I held up the forensic audit. This report documents every transaction, every forged authorization, every wire transfer traced to Victoria's IP address. Sophia Harper was framed. Her name was used to create the LLC without her knowledge or consent. Sophia's face went white. She looked at her mother. Mom? This is absurd, Victoria said, but her voice cracked. Emily, you're clearly unstable. Everyone here knows about your financial troubles. My financial troubles, I said, began when you had me removed from the Preservation Council, when you spread rumors that I was embezzling from the fund, when you blacklisted me with every professional contact I had. I turned to the audience. The reason I was working as a landscape installer for the last 3 months? Because Victoria made sure I couldn't get work in my actual field. The fraud allegations? Completely fabricated. Robert Whitaker stood up. Emily, do you have proof of this? I handed him the audit report. Page 12 details the electronic signatures. Page 18 shows Victoria's login timestamps. Page 33 includes witness statements from my father's accountant and IT specialist. They've been documenting this for 2 years. Victoria grabbed the microphone. Jonathan was sick. He was paranoid at the end. He made arrangements that don't reflect Article 4.3 of my father's will, I interrupted, includes a forfeiture clause. It states that if you contest the distribution or attempt to claim property designated for me, you lose all inheritance rights immediately. You triggered that clause when you filed your challenge 6 months ago. Michael Reynolds stood up from a table near the front. I hadn't even seen him arrive. Victoria Langford Harper, he said formally. As executor of Jonathan Harper's estate, I'm serving you official notice that as of October 14th, 2024, when you filed your will contest, you forfeited all inheritance rights per Article 14.3. The Boston condo, the joint accounts, the retirement investments, all of it reverts to Emily Harper. You have 30 days to vacate the condo. Victoria's face went from white to red. You can't do this. I was his wife. I have rights. You had rights, Michael said. You forfeited them when you tried to steal from his daughter. The photographer was still taking pictures. The Nantucket Chronicle reporter had her phone out, recording. Sophia was crying. Mom, what did you do? I protected our family. Victoria's voice was shaking now, getting louder. Everything I did was to protect us from her. She's always been jealous, always thought she deserved everything just because Jonathan spoiled her. I worked on the Nantucket Beacon restoration, I said quietly. I delivered the final drawings 2 days early. I served on this preservation council as a volunteer for 6 years. I spent every summer maintaining Blue Horizon's foundation, its roof, its storm shutters. I didn't think I deserved everything. I thought I deserved what my father promised me. Your father promised me too, Victoria shouted. He promised me security. He promised me a life. And then he died and left me with nothing but a daughter who hated me and a house I couldn't even access. She stopped, realized what she'd said, that she'd just admitted she knew she had no legal claim to Blue Horizon. The room was completely silent. I think we're done here, I said. I took the microphone off the stand and set it down gently on the podium. Mr. Reynolds has all the documentation you need for the Attorney General's office. The investigation into the fund embezzlement will continue. Sophia, if you want to see the documents proving you were framed, I'm happy to share them with you. I walked off the stage. My legs were shaking now. I made it to the exit before I had to stop and lean against the wall. Robert Whitaker followed me out. Emily, I'm so sorry. If I'd known... It's okay, I said. You're supposed to follow procedure. I understand. Your advisory position, he said. It's yours again. Immediately. And we'd like to offer you the lead architect position on the Stage Harbor Restoration Project. Thank you, I said. I'll think about it. Catherine Mills came out next. Emily, I should have believed you. I should have asked more questions. I'm sorry. You're not the one who needs to apologize, I said. More people came out. People I'd worked with. People who'd known my father. People who'd chosen silence or rumors over truth. Some of them apologized. Some of them just looked ashamed. I walked down to the harbor, sat on the rocks where the ferry docks. It was 9:17 p.m. The sun had set hours ago. The water was dark and quiet. My phone buzzed. Text from Michael Reynolds. You did it, Emily. Jonathan would be so proud. I texted back. Thank you for waiting. I promised him I would, he wrote. He knew you'd be ready when the time was right. I walked home. Not to Blue Horizon, not yet. To the small apartment I'd been renting in Siasconset. I made coffee in the French press my father had saved for me. I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the forensic audit report, the trust documents, the letter in my father's handwriting. You are not a disappointment, he'd written. You are the architect who preserves what others would let crumble. I slept for 12 hours. When I woke up, there were 47 text messages. News traveled fast in Nantucket. The Chronicle had already posted the story, Estate Fraud Uncovered at Harper Fund Gala. Victoria and Sophia checked out of the White Elephant that morning. Sophia left me a voicemail. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the LLC. I didn't know about any of it. I'm so sorry, Emily. Victoria didn't contact me at all. The Attorney General's office opened a formal investigation into the fund embezzlement. Victoria hired a new lawyer, a criminal defense attorney this time. The case took 8 months to resolve. Victoria eventually accepted a plea deal: restitution of $340,000, 5 years probation, 1,000 hours of community service. Sophia was cleared completely. She moved to Portland, Oregon. We talk sometimes. She's in therapy. She's working at a nonprofit. She said once, "I spent my whole life thinking my mom loved me. Turns out she just needed an accomplice." Blue Horizon is mine now. Legally, officially, permanently mine. I moved back in 6 months ago. The first thing I did was change the locks myself. The second thing I did was restore the mahogany desk to my father's study. The third thing I was reinstall the French press in the kitchen. I'm working again. The Stage Harbor restoration. 3 new contracts from the Preservation Council. An invitation to speak at a conference in Charleston about coastal architecture. The work I was meant to do. Sometimes I go down to the beach at 6 a.m., the way my father and I used to. I collect sea glass and watch the sun rise over the Atlantic. The house stands solid on its bluff. The foundation my father and I remortared together. The roof we replaced when I was 22. The storm shutters we painted when I was 16. This isn't just property. It's the promise he made, that the right people inherit what they're supposed to inherit. If you're watching this and you've ever been made to feel like you're asking for too much when you're just asking for what's yours, you're not crazy, you're not greedy, you're not ungrateful. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you will try to take everything. They'll forge signatures, they'll spread rumors, they'll stand in front of witnesses and call you selfish for wanting what was promised to you. But here's what I learned. You don't need anyone's permission to stand up for yourself. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. You just need to wait for the right moment, and then let the truth do what it does best. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be documented. If you've ever had to walk away from family to protect yourself, type "I walked away" in the comments. Or if you chose to stay and demand the truth, type "I demanded truth." Both are brave. Both are valid. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories, just like this one. Thank you for being here. I'm Emily Harper. I'm 34 years old, and I'm standing in my father's house, my house, watching the snow fall on the Atlantic, exactly where I was always meant to be.